Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I am going to get us back to the beginning. There we go. We're going to start in just a minute. People are still logging in. We want to give them a chance to get situated, and then we'll get going. Okay, everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Simplified Backup, Hybrid Cloud Storage. We are going to dive into this topic and address it from a strategic point of view as well as sort of a real nuts and bolts point of view. And I'd like to begin by telling you who's on this webinar. My name is Greg Newman. You can see my picture there, and I'm very pleased to say I'm joined by Mark Levitt, our Senior Director of Product Marketing. Hello, Mark.
Good morning, Greg.
Glad to be here to talk about this topic. Before we go any further, Mark, I want to point something out because it came up in an article. One of our partners, Veeam, had an article they sent me yesterday. I'm sure they sent a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they talked about backup in a multi-cloud environment. And as you can see from today's topic here, we're talking about hybrid cloud. Why don't we take a minute to define those terms?
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion in that. And without getting too wonky and talking about how NIST defines these things, I think the way it's evolving, we can really subsume the multi-cloud into the hybrid cloud. Because the hybrid cloud is really talking about, and here I will just go to the NIST definition, talking about a confederation of two or more dissimilar clouds, right? So when we talk about hybrid, we're typically talking about something that's on site and something that's in the public cloud. But that is really just a special case of a multi-cloud. It's still multi, there's two of them.
Yep.
Right, they're confederated, they're hopefully managed somewhat together, they hopefully share data.
Which leaves the multi-cloud definition open to be more about two public clouds?
Yeah, two or more public clouds is really what that's talking about.
Yeah, and that's important, and I understand Veeam made a conscious choice in using that term, and I think it's a good choice, I understand it.
Yeah.
Here, we really want to talk about the hybrid environment because, and we'll get into this a little bit later, because strategies for backup probably should start by thinking about what your on-premises environment is and how that might look. Everybody's going to be a little different, of course, but hybrid seems to be, at least amongst our customers.
Hybrid architecture is huge.
Yeah.
With our customers.
Yeah, exactly, and it really seems like we're now living in a hybrid world. So good. I just want to take a moment to talk about that important point right at the outset. Let's dive in. So for those of you who are new to the topic, and I don't know how many that might be.
I think it's probably a pretty low number.
Yeah, at this point, backup is fairly well known. But we should understand it really from a strategic perspective first, and that is to say it's a business imperative. You really need to be thinking about backup and data loss. Really, the fear of data loss should be driving this because it's very real. The costs are very real, and the possibility is very real.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, most people, and I'm sure that's true, most people in our audience have seen numbers like this.
Yeah.
This is the reality thing. And of them, the most striking one is the one in the middle. And, I've spent a long time in enterprise storage, in and around enterprise storage. And that's the point that people often don't understand, except that you read it in the paper. And hopefully you don't, but a lot of people do that could never happen to me.
Right. There's that.
And that's what everybody says until it happens. When you have a catastrophic data loss, the chances are very good it's going to put you out of business.
Yeah.
That's just the reality. And in, you talk about a hybrid world, but the other thing we've got going is a really hostile world.
Yes.
In terms of data attacks. So
we've been talking a lot about ransomware lately, I know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hottest topic in backup, right? Yeah. So, it's still, most data loss is still, caused by human error.
Yeah.
But when it's done by design, the thoroughness is just terrifying.
Yeah, I know exactly right. And this is the statistic on the right. I just want to take a moment. really struck me.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it before. And of course, tape backup is a mainstay. Everybody knows about it. Many people use it. And you think to yourself, well, that's safe. Maybe not, actually.
No, and again, most people, if you've been in and around tape backups, you understand this. And tapes have gotten, like everything else, tapes have continued to get much better. They're faster, they're higher capacity, and they last longer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still relative to rotating media, sealed rotating media like disk drives, and certainly relative to solid state media.
Yeah.
You're talking about something that over time it's more prone to mechanical failure, and also it's much harder to do what we call data scrubbing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you got data on disk, you have data in SSDs, then you can have background processes go back and check it and rewrite it, do all those things to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do when you have a data warehouse full of tapes.
Yeah, a good point, right? All right, so let's talk a little bit about, in more detail, some of the trade-offs in traditional backup. We just talked about corruption of media.
Yeah.
And magnetic media too, right? It can be corrupted, we know that.
Well, yeah, this line is mostly about tape, because tape is magnetic media. You can corrupt a disk drive, if you drop it while it's running or something, but
yeah,
it's a lot harder to do.
Time to restore, always an issue. People do talk a bit about it.
That is not always an issue. That is a huge issue.
Yeah.
And it's the dark side of the data growth.
Yeah.
Right. Is that if you're backing up all your data, which you should be doing, or all your data that you care about, mm-hmm. you got to think about how long, if I got wiped out, mm-hmm. how long would it take to get it back from my best recovery method?
Yeah.
And understanding that for each of your recovery steps. So, and that goes right into the 94% number.
Yeah.
Right. Because for a lot of businesses, if they're offline for 3, 4, 5 weeks restoring data, you're done.
Yeah. It's an unrecoverable error.
Yeah.
These next points, I want to talk about them individually, but I want to point out that I believe that 3, and especially 4, 5, and 6, they begin to describe a scenario, if you take them together, that explain the advantages of the approach we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Because as a category, as a group, I should say, these are tough issues individually. Now put them together, and you've got, gee, how am I going to solve for that?
Yeah, well, especially the last 3, you take those, and those are issues of complexity and operational management.
Yeah.
Of what it takes to manage tens of thousands of tapes or whatever the number is. I don't want to skip over data security though, because that's obviously it's a big compliance issue, it's a big governance issue,
yeah.
And increasingly it is in fact an operational issue because of the hostile environment.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I did put up this stat. I found it and loved it. To your point a few minutes ago on the other slide, we don't like to admit it, but we're humans and we make mistakes.
Yeah.
So let's just know that going in.
Man, the stories I could tell of human errors. That's.
Yeah, it's true, and that leads us to
right.
What I think is probably the best way we can say it, which is you got to simplify.
You got to simplify, and especially when you have human beings involved.
Yeah.
Right. The simpler you make it, and this is 2 phases. I mean, operationally, if you go all the way back to operations research, right? I mean, you got to simplify as much as you can, because that's how you take the chances of error out. And given that that you got a high chance of having a business fail if you can't get your backups and the worst case happens, getting high confidence that whole pipeline works is incredibly important. And to make that work, you gotta simplify it, especially for the humans. So there's 2 pieces. There's operational simplicity and there's automation.
Right, exactly. And you really need, in order to have a full-featured backup solution, you really need to be thinking about both, a strategic approach.
Yeah, and the one thing, and everybody who's involved who goes deep in backup at all will tell you one of the first things they hate is that we call it backup.
Right.
We really should be focused on restore.
That's a great point, right?
It's easy to back up. It's harder to restore.
So if you keep that goal in mind rather than the goal of the backup, it changes your priorities, it changes your view.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah, I like that.
I mean, you still have to get your backups done in your Windows and all that kind of stuff, but you got to be able to restore. What are you doing?
I love it. And so, we deal with this all the time, Mark. Many of our customers have either started with us for backup. That's one very popular use case for us.
Absolutely.
Or backup is a part of what they do with us, in addition to their primary storage and other things. So we certainly had a lot of experience with this all over the world, and we have different customers with different needs and different capabilities, and we've seen that you really can sort of take a stepped approach. You can really look at this depending on your appetite and your bandwidth and so forth.
And depending on where you are in terms of your backup maturity. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to boil the ocean on your first go to get some really effective protection against some of the biggest threats that are out there, and that's really what we're saying there.
Yeah, exactly. So even something like a simple backup to object storage scheme can really make a difference.
It can make and especially when it's, and there are, I'll get into it in some of the later slides, but there are some real advantages in having that backup run outside of your hosts.
Yes.
And from a security, I mean, not even just the operational side, and it's great for CPU cycles and all that kind of stuff. It's good for security.
Yeah, and that's, again, on that list of 6 things that we need to be careful about.
That's right.
All right, so we're going to take a look at these scenarios and some of what you might need to consider if you're thinking about incorporating something like, for instance, let's start with backup to object storage.
Right, it's a good, simple way to do it. Yeah. So this is starting, we have primary workload sitting on some Zadara storage, and we then have the ability to automatically, right, so we're going to the automation thing, right? We're going to simplify by automate. It's a simple flow, and and the automation is also simple. And you can just start making backups into an object store, and that object store can be a Zadara object store. It could be Amazon S3 or anything that's S3 or Swift compatible. Again, so you have a lot of options there. You can have, which, and that folds. Sorry, I'm riffing. Just give me a second.
Yeah, I like this. This is good.
And that also goes to when we talk about what your backup strategy is. Those object stores could be on premises, but even better, they can be someplace else.
Yeah.
Right. And then you accomplish 2 things. It's backup out of the control of the hosts, so harder to attack, and it gives you offsite copies.
Yeah, yeah. We have a number of customers that use Amazon S3, for instance.
Absolutely.
And others, and seems like a good choice for what you're describing in terms of achieving those security objectives and efficiency objectives.
Right. Well. I mean, Amazon knows how to run a data center, right? So you have high confidence that is going to be available.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. One thing we don't mention explicitly here on this slide, but I want to point out, you said it, but I want to be very clear. We have this backup to object storage functionality built into our storage offering.
That's correct. It's an option in the storage array. Yeah. You just flip it on and do it's really quite a simple setup. Once you have an Amazon account, which you do, or you wouldn't be doing this. And you just set up the parameters on how often you want to back it up and how long you retain them and that kind of thing, and just let it fly.
Nice. Let's take it a step further now and talk about something that is a multi-tier
approach, right? Yeah. So this is where it gets real, and this is where we bring in the discussion of things like ransomware. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, which is really, this has always been a good practice. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about a 3-2-1, a 3-2-1-1, we're talking about 3 copies of your data, 2 different kinds of media, and at least 1 off-site. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what that moniker means. Okay, so and what we do is, and Zadara brings really some good value to this, because with the same interface, with the same storage interface, you can have primary, right, which is what you're doing you're doing your production. You can back it up to, so that could be like all flash, say, just as an example.
Yeah.
You can back that up maybe to a set of hard disks or a hybrid SSD hard disk to get your backups done fast, so you get your windows closed down, and then those can tear off into slower secondary storage that costs a lot less, and you can do it at multiple levels. So we show here another array. Maybe that's just a straight hard disk array, to keep it cheap, all the way down to the offsite object copies.
Right, which is what we just talked about in the previous slide, and we can see then that this is really building upon.
Right, and with Zadara, because we are, cloud is what we do. Yep. These can all be in different places.
Yep.
Right, so you could have them. They could be different locations within a company. They could have multiple sites. They could be within our data centers, and those are spread all over the planet.
Yep.
So you can back your storage up and keep it safe elsewhere. And one of the really cool things when we have, if we use I should have brought this up in the previous slide when we talk about B2OS.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we can do here that's really good when we talk about the recovery side of backup is that we can have those objects stored in our object store, and we can mount them directly to one of our virtual arrays. So you can have immediate access to the backed up copies. Obviously, it's not going to perform as fast, but you can get immediate access to it. And when I say immediate, I mean like, seconds.
Wow.
You can turn it around and use it.
You were talking earlier about recovery. That's
so your recovery can start within seconds or minutes.
Yeah.
Depending on what else is going on in your environment.
Very cool. So this looks, as compared to straight backup to object store, this looks more complex, but really when you break it down as you just did, still simple, still straightforward.
And the flows are all simply automated.
Yeah. I will point out we integrate with some third-party backup software.
Yeah. These diagrams are diagrams that our partners are these are best practices.
Right.
Whether you're using Veeam or using Commvault or Sigra or other partners like that, or you're using B2OS for a simple case, it's the same approach.
Yeah.
You want the multi-tier and you want the offsite. Multiple copies, multiple tiers, multiple media types, offsite.
Yeah, and again, to harp on the theme a little bit of Simplify, by injecting Zadara into this equation, and you can see it in the diagram here with the multiple copies of our VPSAs, that's where the simplification partly comes from, is that you're now dealing with really a single interface like you talked about. You're dealing with a streamlined system that you don't have to necessarily manage so many moving parts. You got it.
That's absolutely true. And the other place that Zadara brings in simplification here is with our operations support team.
Oh, good point.
Because that's the team that will walk you through and help you set up this thing. You're not out on your own setting this up, reading a blog post and putting things together. They will spend the time doing the design with you and getting this in place for you.
It is so true. I'm glad you brought that up. We are going to talk more about that because it's a big part of our offering, isn't it?
It is enormously important.
Before we get there, I put this slide in here because I am sure advanced users on this webinar are asking themselves, yeah, but do you have some of these other features that I'm used to getting in my enterprise storage?
Right.
And
the short answer is yes. Yes, we do.
Exactly. So we can talk at length about each of these three. They're important in a backup scenario. And
right. Yeah, and for people that aren't used to business continuity, we tend to sort of either slash or concatenate these things with disaster recovery, business continuity.
Yeah.
And there, the difference between that and a backup scenario is typically what we call the failure domain. Mm-hmm. In a backup recovery scenario, your failure domain is the data, right? Something happened to your data. The failure domain for DR business continuity is something happened to your data center, right?
Yep.
I mean, hopefully none of this is true, but a hot flaming rock fell on it, or a dam broke, or whatever or maybe it's just a water leak in a data center, right? And now you need the ability to operate from a different data center.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually have a lot of capabilities to support that as well.
Good. So there we go. So, depending on how advanced your needs are, we keep pace with you.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say is just because you hit three of the points here on the slide, and all of those are standard features.
Right.
Right. There's no extra licenses or anything like that. And again, operations support is there to help you set that stuff up.
Good point. We can dive a little more deeply into the snapshots. I know that we have limited time, so I'm just wondering whether we want to do that. I did think it would be important for those who are curious to see at least a little bit of information.
Right. I mean, I think there's a pretty good understanding in the industry of what a snapshot is.
Yeah.
So the one point I do want to make on this, because this goes back to the hostile environment, particularly the malware discussion,
yeah,
is one of the things that this insidious malware does in ransomware. We've seen it with shops that have had to pay these ransoms of really significant numbers, is not only does it scramble your data or encrypt it, there are versions now that will actually get into your host-based snapshot capability and stop your backups from happening. And they can only do that because that's running in the host. So that's the lead into that's where I was going with my comments about host-based backups. Is like if on the other hand your backups are being run, say, from Zadara, then we would have to get penetrated for that to happen. And nature of our business, we put a lot of effort in not being penetrated.
Well, that's all we do all day.
I have friends that's all they do all day.
Exactly.
Run pen tests.
Remote mirroring. So again, very well-known concept.
Right.
I think here what we can talk about a little bit in terms of our approach is that, with our virtual private storage arrays, you really get a chance to be more ambitious, let's call it, in your location and how you want to architect this thing.
Right, and that also goes, there's really a couple of use cases, and we'll just touch on them very briefly. But we're talking about this in the context of disaster recovery and business continuity. The other thing that remote mirroring can get used for, and does by a number of our biggest customers, is actually content replication across global content replication. So, but it's the same thing that, if you're used to seeing what a remote mirror does, we asynchronously replicate the data byte by byte, change byte by change byte, and we send it to a target. We also support, as the diagram indicates, one-to-many as well, and many-to-one.
Yep.
So it's very flexible. We've been doing it for a long time. It's not a new feature, and it's got a lot of use cases.
All right, the last one we mentioned on that slide, and I want to take a moment here because I happen to think this one is really powerful for a variety of reasons that have to do with Zadara specifically and how we've implemented it.
Right. So this is really what we can call this kind of a stretch array logically. Is we actually stretch the components of the virtual array across availability zones within a public cloud. I mean, it could be private cloud too, but I don't know any private clouds that have availability zones. So within AWS, within Google, within Azure, they have availability zones that are logical separations and physical separations, so that you don't lose the whole cloud center if you lose power or something like that. It just happens in terms of an availability zone. We can stretch that array across multiple availability zones. So even if you lose a whole availability zone, your array is still going. You still have all the access from the, and your array is going. And if you've got compute resources in multiple availability zones, which would be the best practice if you're doing this, then they all have access to the data, even with the loss of an availability zone. So it's not strictly a backup operation, but it is about keeping your data available, which is what all the theme on all of this is.
And again, included with our service.
Included with the service.
Okay, so we spent some time looking at the parts of the elephant. Let's take a look at the whole elephant. What are we talking about here? Because I think what we've done in the course of this webinar is host a discussion around strategies for backup and recovery, activities and tactics for backup and recovery, and of course weaved in some discussion of Zadara and how we approach it. But I don't know that we've yet summarized what it is we do. How do we do this? And I think this slide captures our approach, which, by the way, we've been doing since 2011.
Right. Yeah. I like to say, when we talk about enterprise storage as a service, that people ask, well, fine, why you? And the answer is because this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is all we do, and we've been doing it for 8 years. We're not new here.
We were the first external storage partner at AWS.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we have a significant history, and sort of like that insurance commercial on TV. We've seen a few things.
Exactly. We have.
We've seen regional failures. Again, the public cloud guys are excellent at running data centers.
Yep.
But as we all know, bad things do happen. And even if you're the biggest cloud provider on the planet, sometimes you have outages. And that's, we're working through issues like that.
Yeah.
What do you do when a cloud provider goes down or partway down? What do you do when a customer's can't access their data because a squirrel ate the cable? Things like that. I mean, we you go talk to the operations team, right? They have seen it all.
Yeah.
And they have helped customers through it all. So what you get is all the enterprise stuff that you expect. And I'm just glossing over it here, but it's like all the things that you expect from enterprise storage, that's what you get.
And combined with, and again, we live in a hybrid world, so combined with your public cloud environment and augmenting it, and enhancing it.
And that's exactly where it gets different.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's all that control you're used to getting in your enterprise storage, but with all the agility and the business and the operating models, OpEx-based operating model for the cloud. And then you get and then it goes down from there, right? You get choices. You can select different kinds of performance characteristics. You want all flash. You want mixtures of flash and hard disks. How much capacity do you want? What are your busy periods? Do you want to tune your environment to your business cycles? How available do you need to be? Right. Yeah. I mean, not everybody needs to be available all the time and have a recovery point objective of a couple of minutes, right? I mean, that may not be a fit. Okay, good. Don't pay for that.
Yeah, right? Yeah, right. And that's where the options that we provide give you a chance to tune it to your
exactly. And again, we will consult with you to help you understand that.
Now, so there's 3 parts and there's 3 squares on the screen here. There's 3 parts. Actually, I don't know if those are squares. I think they're rectangles, actually. For those, not to be a pedant, but for those of you out there that are looking.
those they're not exactly the same.
Not equilateral. All right, so the one on the right, though, you mentioned it earlier, Mark, and I just want to take a moment. What really distinguishes our offering from some kind of a different cloud offering or even a glorified leasing scheme is that we really are a fully managed service. And you mentioned it earlier. In the context of backup, that actually matters because this stuff is complex. We know that. It's also something that people don't encounter every day, right? And so having some help to be able to do a backup strategy and then to implement that, that can be invaluable. That's just everyday stuff for us. This is what we do because we arranged our business in such a way, as our founders like to talk about. They approached enterprise storage as a service from the point of view that it's a service. That's first, and this is I think the biggest distinguishing feature of our approach relative to some of the others that are now in the market and trying to do similar things.
Yeah, and I would argue that a bunch of that comes from our experience, from the fact that this is what the company was formed to do.
Yeah.
But also, it furthers the simplification message, which is I'm not going to pick on anybody specifically, but what I would advise anybody looking at, I'm using air quotes here, as a service stuff, is you gotta look at the fine print carefully. And the funny thing is, we don't have much fine print.
Right.
So actually, the 100% uptime SLA is an example. That's pretty easy to understand. If you have a downtime that we cause, you get 100% credit for that. It's not like up to 20% of your bill and all the kind of limitations that you have. And that's just an example of simplification. It's also really, truly, it's all OpEx. Right?
Yeah.
There's no it's OpEx if you do the overflow to the cloud. It's like, no, it's all OpEx.
Yeah.
It's the same model whether you're on premises or you're in the cloud.
Yeah.
Right? That's a cool feature, but it's also about it makes it a lot easier. It's simpler to do business.
Yeah, and you put your finger right on it. It's easier to do business.
Yeah.
And that's what we believe the focus should be on at all times. You're not buying storage because you woke up in the morning saying, gee, I think I want to buy more storage. You have data. You have a data that you have those data that need to be available so you can run your business. And we realize that the only way to solve the true problem and meet the challenge is to be a service-oriented organization that truly simplifies things. Okay, we just talked about being simple. We're now about to get more complex. But this is an important slide for all of you.
Whiplash.
Yeah, excuse us, right? But you know what? This audience, I'm sure, just like us here, we're used to dealing in complexity. And what we want to show here is that there's some real horsepower under the hood here. It's an interesting way we've architected things.
There is, and this is actually not a diagram that I think people that are used to say server virtualization as an analog have a hard time with. is how we get these virtual arrays put together. But and the key point about our approach is this multi-tenant efficiency, single-tenant experience, which simply means that every virtual array that gets created, whether it's on premises or in our clouds, has dedicated resources. They don't share disk drives or network channels or RAM or CPU cores or cache, say, with any other virtual array. It's dedicated to the virtual array that gets created. So it really is, it's virtual because we spread it across a lot of machines for availability and scaling, but it really is an array. And it has its own independent existence. And like I said, you can see why that's a big advantage. For instance, if you are backing up to our cloud, you're not going to have a performance problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to get predictable high performance out of it.
No noisy neighbors?
No noisy neighbors.
Yep.
Nobody making a mess in the pool.
Yeah, thank you. Good.
On premises, another way to think about it, especially in bigger organizations, is that you can dedicate these virtual arrays per use case, per department, per however you're organized, so that people don't come to you and complain about their performance because somebody else is hogging again, air quoted, the IOPS capability of the machine. You get your own, they get their own, and you can scale it up and down. You can change it anytime.
Yeah.
Right.
That's got to address at least half of the complaints that come.
Oh yeah. For storage organization, for people managing enterprise storage, complaints from users about performance is that's real high on the list.
Yeah, exactly. All right, good. I'm glad we had a chance to take a look at this this diagram. I think it's instructive because, as you can see, our approach really is from the ground up, really very different.
Right, and that's why we have a patent in this.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Okay, we talked about this. We are coming up on time, so I want to be careful here. Secure encryption, you control the keys. Look what we talk about here, the ISO compliance, SOC 2.
Right.
This is the kind of stuff you'd expect, but let's be explicit. We got it. It's here, and you're in control.
Right, and the thing, this slide highlights the right thing. Is like, it's encrypted in flight, it's encrypted in place, and you control the keys. That's it. I mean, everything else is like, that's what you'd expect. Yeah. But the point being, please don't lose your keys.
Yeah, we can't help you.
Because we can't help you.
Yeah, we don't have access to the data layer. Now, this is a little bit, for those of you that are saying, well, okay, if I have control, how do I control?
Yeah.
Well, here you go. It's an interface that I'm sure anybody who's run a storage array before will be very familiar with. And you get a chance to see some terrific analytics and performance metrics as well.
Right. But the experience is very much what it is, right? I mean, it's a storage array. The fact that they're virtual is irrelevant here, and it does a storage array thing. So you do all those storage allocation things and monitoring things that you would do.
All right, let's keep moving. And in fact, we're moving toward the end here. So that
Are you telling me I'm talking too much? Is that what you're saying?
We both talk too much. We have a good time talking about this stuff, don't we? I like it. And look, there's no way you're going to get through this entire topic in a 45-minute webinar. But hopefully we've shared some good information today.
Right.
Help some people understand the topic a little bit better. And now, to wrap things up in terms of Zadara, here's a quick slide to summarize what it is we offer. And these things, of course, these items you see in the bullet points, we've talked about these things, but let's take a moment to hit a few.
The only one, actually, I want to hit just two things here to acknowledge our audience this time. Again, uniquely in as a service environments, not only can you scale up, you can scale down.
Good point, right? People don't see that immediately.
There's not this again complexity around like reserve capacity, and you can't go below your reserve. I mean, it's like you scale up, you scale down. It's that straight, and your bill reflects the difference. The point on upgrades. So software upgrades is something we push out. Work with your team, but we on your schedule, but we make sure you stay current. I almost can't say enough on the hardware thing, especially if you're on premises. Now, if you're in the cloud, then obviously we're managing the hardware, and you don't have to worry about it. If you're on premises, and again, this is enormously different than anybody else. If you're on premises and you're running an all flash and it's using, say, STaas flash, right? And NVMe comes out, which it just did, and you want to upgrade yours to NVMe, you just tell us you want to do that.
Yep.
Anytime. So it's not even periodic. It's on demand.
Right.
And there is no cost to you to do that upgrade.
This is, I'm glad you're mentioning this and taking time to really walk through it, because we get a lot of questions about this. Really, can you do that?
Oh yeah, people don't know, say what?
Yeah, and yes, we can do it. Our business model allows for it. We like to joke that the reason we can allow for it is data usage is only growing, people.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
we're comfortable with this scenario.
Yeah, we're good with it. And wait, there was another point I was going to get there. You can do the upgrade. Oh, yeah, and not only is there no cost to you, but, and this is again very different, especially than legacy vendors. There's no special support package to buy.
Right.
Right. It's all part of the service.
So 100% OpEx in Zadara's world means
100% OpEx.
Yeah.
All of it.
I'm glad. All right. So listen, you may or may not know us before this webinar. Here's a few of the companies we work with, just a few. We have thousands of EPSAs running all over the world. We have over 200 points of presence, and we have names big and small in industries and in government, and we're very proud of the work we do. Please visit our website to learn more, because we have even more stories. The best way, often, to see the value of any new product is to try it, and we make it very simple. You can sign up, get a free trial, and we recommend you do that. And when you do, you take advantage of what, Mark, you were saying about our experts helping.
Right. Yeah, because they'll help you onboard and get started.
Yeah. So it's not one of those automated free trials you're on your own. Actual humans are there every step of the way. All right. So we try very hard to respect everyone's time. We're 37 minutes into what I'd like to have a 45-minute webinar. So I think we did pretty well today, Mark. I think we did pretty well.
Yeah, got 8 minutes to wrap up and
yeah.
deal with any questions, or else we can always give them a minute or two back to our erstwhile audience.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I do want to take time right now to thank everybody for listening and being a part of today's webinar. If you do have questions, please put them into the questions area inside of the webinar interface. And we're starting to get some questions, Mark, so this is good. Will you please share some pricing, asks one visitor. Thank you. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, that's always a legitimate question.
Mm-hmm.
What I would suggest, rather than trying to verbalize it here, is go to the website.
Yep.
And
we have two things.
I should know this, but
we have a pricing calculator. There's a pricing page right on our website.
Right.
So please do visit that. The pricing calculator will help you see exactly what you might pay in various scenarios. And our pricing list gives you a good guide into what you'll pay for different types of storage media, different engines, the performance that you're looking to get. We hope that'll be helpful. It is very much priced. I will tell you, the model is a cloud model, and it is priced based on roughly the gigabytes per hour, but it breaks down into a monthly price basically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, if you have experience in public cloud stuff, the overall shape of the model will make a lot of sense. It's just simpler.
Thank you. I was just about to say that. It's just simpler because
I got a theme here.
Yeah. As much as we love our public cloud partners, we know that it's not always the simplest. All right, let's talk a little bit about object storage versus standard backup storage. This is a question that just came in. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we can unpack that one a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of ways looking at the intent behind the question. But so depending on what your backup strategy is and who your backup partner is, you could be backing up to almost any kind of storage, right? I mean, you could back up even to block storage. You could back up to file storage, and those could be riding on almost anything from all flash to all disk. What we tend to see a lot of interest in is the object store as the target, simply because that is the lowest cost per persistent gigabyte you're going to find.
Yeah,
it's going to be an object store. So, and we all want all want our backup fast. We certainly require that it's available, and cheap is also good.
Yeah, and to the point a few minutes ago about pricing, you're talking now about just a few cents versus, many times that, right?
Yeah,
Cents per hour.
yeah. Typically, it's a significant multiple.
Yeah.
Certainly, if you're talking about all flash, but I mean that would be most of us are not going to back up to all flash. But there's no. But I just want to make it clear in case there's any confusion. There's no fundamental difference from our perspective on file, block, object, and then whatever media it's on. It's all the same. There's no specific backup media. The only contrast we were trying to make was between like backing up to object, backing up to file potentially, as opposed to backing up to tape.
Right, exactly. All right, good. Well, these are the kinds of questions we get all the time. We have experts here, in addition to Mark and his expertise. We have experts in the operations group that run storage. No matter how complex your questions, bring them to us. We haven't been stumped yet. As far as I know, that when it comes to storage, we got a group that really goes deep. It's really impressive.
They do, and if it's really interesting, you'll get our CTO or our CEO involved.
That is true. That is true. We are storage geeks around here. We're proud of it.
It's been known to happen, yeah.
Yeah, we enjoy it. I guess after all, like we said, it's the only thing we do all day. All right, so we got another question here about our relationships with public clouds, and that's a good one.
It's a good one. I haven't seen the most current list, but I think we're like adjacent now to 23 centers. In some cases, there are places where we're adjacent. We have sites that are adjacent to multiple public cloud centers.
Yep.
To really support that multi-cloud. Actually, we started that conversation in the beginning.
Yep.
As opposed to almost anybody you're going to find, we actually do multi-cloud.
Yeah.
We actually have customers that do multi-cloud. So we have you can't be in this business and not have a relationship with AWS. We have a very strong relationship with AWS. We're also an advanced technology partner with AWS, but we also are adjacent and work with Google, and we also work with Azure, and in fact we have also worked with IBM and Oracle.
Yep.
So we are pretty agnostic when it comes to the cloud provider.
We are, and that's a good word to use. And I should point out, because this is not a public cloud webinar, and we didn't spend a lot of time talking about it, but I just want to point out.
That would definitely take more than 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. But for those of you that are interested to understand a little bit more about how this might work, please know that our storage, Mark talked about it as being adjacent. That's important to note. You retain control over your data by having it reside in Zadara, while still taking advantage of the compute functionality inside the public cloud.
Yep.
And so you do get, again, that's sort of the best of both worlds environment, because you get to take advantage of some advanced storage capabilities while still taking advantage of all the goodness from the public cloud.
Right, and certainly if you're in an environment, particularly say a regulatory environment, where there is sensitivity, where data is located, this can be a big help.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do have customers that do exactly that, and that was part of their RFP, part of their requirements list.
Right, that's particularly true like in the GDPR countries, but starting in January, it's true in California, and there are a number of other states that are putting through things that put that in there. So we're just about, I think, at wrap-up time here.
Yes, we are. I want to thank everybody for attending today. We appreciate your time. I would encourage you to please visit our website to learn more and perhaps to take a free trial. If you have questions for us, you can contact us through the website. Our experts are standing by, as they say. And I'd like to close by thanking Mark Levitt for being here with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Everybody, we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.